Start in another minute or two. Thank you. There are some seats that are empty in the first row right here. It would be great if you would like to take them. There are also some cushions which are also comfortable. I can see a couple of chairs right there as well. Great. This looks intimate and nice. So, shall we start? Is the live streaming on? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished panelists and innovators, thank you so much for being here. Good evening. I'm Jubin. I'm your MC for tonight's event, and it's my honor and privilege to welcome each one of you here this evening. Thank you so much for being here, and I would like to formally sort of welcome you to Flip the Notion. This is an event that celebrates the power of local innovation and localization in the humanitarian sector. It's an absolute pleasure to see each one of you, and I can't tell you how overwhelming it is to see people from different sectors, people from different states, people from different backgrounds, and the diversity that have come here today, and to be exchanging knowledge and to being engaging with each other. So this is an absolute joy to see. As author Jamie Notter once said, innovation is change that unlocks new value. This quote really struck a chord with me, and why I mention this today is because it is very, very connected to what we are doing here as a part of this event. So Flip the Notion is fundamentally centered on localization. Our mission is to honor local innovators, showcase indigenous solutions, as you can see right behind us on those panels, and foster cross-boundary collaborations and innovations. We do this by focusing on localization. We are demonstrating the real change that can be driven from the grassroots, right where all the magic happens. And we are striving to build resilient, sustainable, and community-focused, most important, community-focused approach to climate adaptation. I especially want to mention that the whole idea of this event is to, exemplify the shift in perspective, the mindset, and celebrate the value, the true value of local solutions, the local innovations in addressing global challenges. And we often, I'll also like to say this in Hindi, हम अक्सर भूल जाते हैं कि जो ग्रास रूट्स में इनोवेशंस होता है उसको उसका इम्पैक्ट कहाँ कहाँ तक जा सकता है, देश के किस किस कोने में, दुनिया के किस किस कोने में जा सकता है. और हमारा उद्देश्य इस इवेंट के थ्रू यही है कि हम ग्रास रूट्स के इनोवेशंस को स्केल पे लेके जा पाएँ, उससे उसके द्वारा लोगों तक इम्पैक्ट पहुंचा पाए. So with that, this event, I would like to say, is a platform that not just recognizes but also promotes and learns from the incredible work of our dear local innovators, and we want to emphasize on the importance once again on thinking beyond geographical boundaries when it comes to solving complex problems. I hope all of you got the chance to look at the innovators' work, interact with them, learn about what they're doing, and also contribute. And I would really encourage each one of you present here to understand what are their challenges and see what are the ways you can be useful to them, and vice versa. I'm pretty sure some of their innovations and solutions can be used in your context, in your work, in your geographies, and we would love to see some really interesting partnerships fostering from this event. Now, without further ado, I would like to take this opportunity to showcase a video. So to provide a deeper understanding of the incredible work being done by the innovators and their organizations, we'll screen a short film that takes us on a journey into their lives. And this film dwells deep into the organization's journey with their innovations and how they're making a significant impact in their communities. So can I request the audiovisual team to now play the short film? Thank you.
Innovations to me means doing something creative and unique within the limited resources that are available.
Innovation is opportunities to be recognized, heard of, to be valued.
To me, innovation is actually the possibility of looking at things that we already know from a different perspective, from a new perspective.
नए तरीके के साथ साथ जो हमारे एफिशिएंसी को इम्प्रूव कर सके और प्रोडक्टिविटी को बढ़ा सके, ये सारे चीज़ों को पाने के लिए जो भी तरीके हम लोग अपनाते हैं वो इनोवेशन का प्रकार हो सकता है.
Something which also comes from you personally and also collaboratively.
Finding out new solutions, new pathways, new strategies for a given issue.
Identifying a problem and finding a solution for it and use it for the betterment of mankind.
A new idea which gives sustainable solutions to an existing problem.
We hope that stories that don't get coverage, don't get covered, don't get told, will be out there for people to learn from, people to understand, and hopefully this understanding and this learning will lead to some kind of social change.
If you talk about innovation in our project, it has got two different parts. One is a completely technical design part of it, and the other side is that again that emotional connect which we are trying to build with the community and who we are designing for.
We have trained 130 persons with disabilities and their caretakers on survival skills. That is of all the disasters which is applicable in Kerala. And in the next disaster or the hazard, those who got the training program, they will be at a safer end.
फार्मर्स में कॉन्फिडेंस डेवलप हुआ है कि इस तरीके से भी मछली पालन किया जा सकता है, इस तरीके से भी अपने घर पे ही हम लोग इनकम ले सकते हैं। थोड़ा सा फार्मिंग प्रैक्टिसेस को इम्प्रूव करके ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा उत्पादन लिया जा सकता है।
Pastoralism has always existed, and today that entire space is facing the threat of existence. What our innovation has enabled is not just going to these people and ensuring that yes, you are being heard, filling them with that confidence, instilling that confidence in themselves that they value, they matter, but it has also brought together a very unheard of model.
Better preparation for disaster management. So in our country we have huge population who are living along the shoreline. What we need is a pre-informed decision making before any cyclone or any disaster. So in order to prepare the rural communities in the whole area of our country, we need specifically a data driven decision making
where a mutual support is become the basis of finding out solutions for the communities, for the affected people, LGBTQ people, beach vendors, women. Tourists will come, tourists will go, but the local actors, they will stay forever. So they need to collaborate, they need to support each other, they need to do such kind of innovations where the risk should be reduced.
We as an organization, we want to create a bigger impact, which is basically that this innovative program should reach out to all 23,000 schools in the UT of Jammu and Kashmir. And we have this dream, we have this vision, the safety and security of every child in Jammu and Kashmir.
Innovation is important in the social sector because innovation is important in the world.
तो यदि हम लोग इनोवेशंस में जाते हैं तो उसका एक स्वरूप ये भी होना चाहिए कि वो इतना उसका जो कॉस्टिंग हो इतनी हो कि वो सामान्य लोग भी उसका उपयोग कर पाएँ.
Innovation is definitely important in the social sector with community participation, and at large it is like policy change.
It is very important for the social sector at large to come together as not mere service delivery individuals or organizations who take resources from one pool and pass it on to the other. But how can they optimize these resources that are being redirected for the good of the larger space into some actual sustainable good of that space?
And we as social workers, humanitarian workers can't keep doing traditional stuff. There has to be innovation in our programs, in our activities, so that we remain relevant in this evolving world.
Can we continue the clapping, because that was really, really overwhelming to watch. What an incredible journey, isn't that? I don't hear that. I personally want a minute to take that in, because that was really, really good. Very impactful for sure. And now, I think it's time for us to move towards a very interesting model, which is we're going to do a tete-a-tete, which is going to be followed by a panel discussion. And we have the privilege of welcoming two of our very own innovators, with Ajay and Remya from WRI, and we have Akriti and Prerna from Urmul. Can we have a round of applause and invite them over here? And I will also invite Anant Mittal, who will be moderating the tete-a-tete. Over to you, Anant.
Thank you, Jubin. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone has had a chance to take a walk through all the exhibitions and look at all the incredible work of our innovators. The Humanitarian Innovation Lab, which is a collaboration between STS Global and SEEDS, it doesn't just aim to develop and pilot the innovation, but also aims to scale that innovation and increase its impact. And this year, the scaling grant has been awarded to WRI and Urmul. And it's great that we have you here, so welcome and thank you for being here today. For starters, if I could ask both of you to just give everyone a little bit of context about what your innovation is, and maybe more importantly, why you chose this particular innovation. So, Ramya?
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for having us here, and it's been great to meet everybody else, see the work that everybody else is doing. A little bit about our innovation. We are Words, Rhythms, Images. We are a communications agency. We like to say that we are a communications agency with a social bent. A lot of the work that we do is related to social change. A lot of our partners are people who are working in various spaces of social change. And our innovation, the idea, we're basically storytellers. Ajay is a filmmaker, and he can tell us a little bit about the work that he does in the film sector. The idea of this innovation came from the fact that as storytellers, we were always telling other people's stories. And we wanted to know what happens if we, as they say, pass a mic, and in this case, pass a camera. And so the idea came from that, and we wanted to see that if we, and everybody's using a mobile phone these days. Almost everybody has a mobile phone. Almost everybody uses their mobile phone to make videos. But not everybody is necessarily telling a story, even though everybody has a story to tell. So that we wanted to explore that a little bit. We wanted to build capacities of people to tell their own stories in their own ways, and then see if those stories were passed on to other people who don't know about their circumstances, other people who haven't heard such stories. What kind of change could that perhaps bring about?
Just to add briefly to that, I think Remy has covered pretty much everything we've been doing, but in this particular phase, we also focused on enabling storytellers in various organizations. So we partnered with about 20 NGOs, 10 from Delhi, 10 from Dehradun, which is where we are based and which is where our project is based. And essentially just first had a round of conversations with them to understand their challenges around storytelling. And then, of course, did a 2-day workshop where we introduced them to the more technical aspects of storytelling, because the challenge with storytelling is everyone is a storyteller already, but that doesn't make everyone a great or a compelling storyteller. So how do you go from just being a storyteller to be a compelling storyteller, to be a storyteller who can tell stories in a structured way and in a responsible way? And that was sort of our focus in this round.
Thank you. Yeah, I've also had the personal privilege of having attended one of your workshops. And for me personally, to understand how those 10 seconds of film can have such a big impact, but also the amount of thinking that should go into it. And you've spoken about responsible filmmaking, and you spoke about it there as well. I think personally that was just very interesting. And also I think it's something that's more profound than it actually seems on the outside. So thank you, both of you. Can I ask you the same thing? Your innovation, a little bit about it, and why you chose?
We have been working on the issue of pastoralism, and little did we know that it would take the scale and take the shape and form that it slowly has started to now. We were just looking at a livelihood stream that was the basis of sustenance of millions of animal herders in the state of Rajasthan, and many crore people across the length and breadth of arid and semi-arid regions in India. What we realized in that learning process, in that journey, is that every problem around climate solution, around livelihood, around land rejuvenation, even issues like women empowerment, we realized that pastoralism and a steady, properly designed value chain around that is the solution to it. Similarly, we came across this problem that Seeds and the overall Humanitarian Innovation Grant launched, that how would you combat the impacts of heat and cold waves? While working on it, we realized, oh, hello, yes, we are in Rajasthan. We face the highest instances of heat and cold waves in India. And who is at the brink of this challenge, who is at the forefront of this challenge. And again, this community that has been walking for hundreds and hundreds of kilometers on foot just to feed their animals in return of very, very meager income, and even not in most of the cases. And so, of course, this entire innovation grant and the aim that we were looking at came together pretty well. And what we've seen in the last 2 years with this program has nothing been short of a miracle, that how we started as solving, innovating for one particular challenge, and we ended up developing a full value chain and ensuring the sustainability for hundreds of years forward with this program. And so, very, very grateful to this initiation spark that came from the humanitarian grant.
Thank you. I think something that most people don't know is that the potlies and the toys that you've received today as you walked in have been made by Urmul. So thank you for doing that for us as well. Ajay, Ramya, if I could ask you something that's slightly specific to you, because you've been associated with the HI Lab for the longest period of time, which is, how has that journey been across all the cohorts, and how has it changed what you do?
The journey has definitely been exciting and challenging, because each time we were pushed to do something new. When we started this in 2020, we were doing something very similar to the work we already do, which is going to communities and capturing stories. These stories were still stories that were not being told very often. But by the second round, we had changed the model completely, and we were, as I said earlier, exploring what would happen if people tell their own stories. And so we kind of changed our lens from being people who are designing stories or working with groups to design their stories to the capacity building aspect of this. And then in this third round, we opened it up a little bit more and thought about, okay, if we go to a bigger group and organizations who are already working in the area of social change, and if we take this model to them and ask them to make their own stories, how does the space change a little bit more? So each time was extremely challenging because we were doing something new, and we were also doing something that we were not really sure we could do. And it kind of pushed us to look at ourselves and our skills in a different way. And that's really been an extremely encouraging learning experience.
Do you want to add something to that?
Sure. I think storytelling, filmmaking is an extremely, it comes with a great deal of responsibility, and which then means enabling storytellers becomes all the more difficult and challenging. But the biggest challenge, I think, was to realize that it's difficult for people to look at their own experiences as stories. I, as a storyteller, when I go in and I sit here and I can make up 5 stories about this evening, but to the person who's experiencing something, to objectively look at their experience, their challenge, we were focusing on water stress. अगर पानी नहीं आ रहा तो पानी नहीं आ रहा, ये कहानी कैसे बनेगी, इसमें मैं कहानी क्या बनाऊं, और अगर मैं इसमें कहानी बनाऊं तो इससे क्या होगा. It's a hypothesis, remember, it always is, right? It begins as a hypothesis. So that challenge of, yes, we are sure storytelling is powerful, but will this actually bring change? Can these films, 1 minute, 2 minute films made by the community bring change? Thankfully they did. Thankfully it did bring some impact. And we feel more and more confident about taking this forward. Yeah.
Thank you. Now is also probably a good time to tell everyone that the film that you just saw, that fantastic film, was made by WRI, and they made it in record time and worked on a very tight deadline, so I really appreciate it. Since Ajay just spoke of the term hypothesis, right? In your journey from the hypothesis 2-3 years ago to where you are right now, what's the one moment or experience or period in those years that has stood out to you as the defining moment of this journey? Prerna?
See, when we started with the hypothesis that can nomadic pastoralism be organized without sedentarizing it? Can a value chain, can this way of livelihood be made relevant for today's times? Is it even relevant today? Why do we have to follow something just because it was traditionally followed, if it's not needed anymore? And so when we started exploring that question, the first question we ourselves had to explore was why it is needed today. The whole context of why it is relevant for the ecology of that area or for climate change, what does it mean? Why these pastoralists, the necessity for them to travel and the fact that they're regenerating so much land without anybody knowing about it, right? The way that they practice their livelihood is as sustainable as sustainability could be. Today, the new brands and everybody talks about bringing in sustainability, but these value chains are designed on the context of sustainability at its core. And so, first and foremost was A, identifying the correct problem, B, convincing the community that this is a problem, that you don't need to live like this. It's not a necessity that you throw away the wool. It's not correct that the market is rejecting of coarse because it's coarse. The indigenous wool is rejected by the market because it's too coarse as compared to a merino or other polyfibers. And that's not the reality that you should accept. And so I think one of the biggest moments which stood out for us was when we collected almost 5,000 kgs of fiber from the single CFC, and for all 3 seasons, there are 3 seasons, and good, bad, ugly, the entire fiber was collected, and the pastoralists earned a decent income through that. They got vaccination support through that, and the atmosphere in that CFC was different, completely charged up. And since then, we don't even have to push them. The pastoralists themselves come in for their own meetings just to chill at the CFC, and that changes the entire idea. That is what we wanted them to do. So yeah, that was a big moment for us.
Thank you. And if I can just ask you a follow-up, which is, from here, where do you go? Where would you like to go with the scaling grant? And
see, this model, which we call the Magra model, this is the first time, we realized this much later. This is the first time this kind of a model has been created across the world. And so this model has the capability to be scaled up to other pastoral contexts as well. We've spoken to people in Ethiopia, Syria, all these places, Afghanistan, all of these places, the problem of the pastoralist remains the same. And so this model can really be a game changer for pastoralists across the world. And it very much proves that rural value chains have the capability to address the market challenges. Rural value chain, this simple pastoral value chain has the capability to bring in sustainability in built environment or packaging or different industries. And that can be a game changer for other industries also. So it opens a different level of scale and opportunity for the overall context.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if I can put the same question to you, which is, where do you go from here?
I think hearing you, I was also reminded of the fact that I think one of the beauties of some of these models is how they sustain on their own, right? So Shahida ji, who's here with us, one of the community members, one of the storytellers, has just been regularly making videos, right? We're not having to prompt anyone anymore. People are just making videos on their own and just sending it to us, and they're making it on whatever they feel like making it, right? It's not limited to any themes and so on. As far as going forward is concerned, we are, with our partner Aryan Group, we definitely intend to take this to a wider audience. We feel like this is a model that can be replicated, can be easily replicated. And I think there is our understanding from meeting these various organizations over the past 2 months has been that there is a need for this, because there are organizations, big and small, that are facing the same challenges as far as storytelling is concerned. And the more we are able to enable them to just pick up their phone and tell, like I said, structured, responsible stories, the more I think all of us will get to learn about other stories, other people, other cultures, other challenges, and hopefully build a better world together. Yeah.
Thank you, both Ajay, Ramya, Akriti, Prerna. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope that people continue to come and chill at the CFCs and that you can take this to many other countries. And I hope people keep telling their own stories and other people's stories on their own and really make that impact that you're looking at. Thank you so much. Jubin, back to you.
Thank you, Anand, and thank you, Urmul and WRI. Can I have you back for a quick picture? Thank you so much once again. Thank you for those truly inspiring insights into the world of innovations. All right, so before we dive into our panel discussion, let's take a moment and appreciate the rich cultural heritage of Kashmir with a mesmerizing Ladisha performance. So, for the ones who don't know what Ladisha is a Kashmiri folk ballad that is creatively used by one of our own innovators here, Alpha International. And what they do with this is they creatively use this medium to sensitize students and teachers in schools in Kashmir on the importance and largely on disaster risk management and address the real issue of school safety in the region. So I was privileged to learn a lot about them yesterday when we were doing a workshop on partnerships and scaling up, and it's so good that how they use this performance, and I'm excited to see the Ladisha performance. So can we have this on screen? Thank you.
मेरा नाम अरीज सईद है। मैं कश्मीर श्रीनगर से हूँ। मैं अल्फ़ा इंटरनेशनल के साथ जुड़ी हूँ पिछले 2 साल से। आई एम वर्किंग देयर एज अ प्रोजेक्ट कोऑर्डिनेटर, एज अ फील्ड वर्कर। Ladisha has actually been the traditional folk ballad of Kashmir, Jammu Kashmir. Initially, only elderly men used to do it. This art form talks about the issues, the social issues, the political issues, the socio-political issues, the economic issues, anything that's going on in your surrounding, anything about which you need to get masses opinionated or you need to make them aware. लेकिन जो इसका अंदाज़ बयां है, that is the thing that makes it unique. So that was about the Ladisha, and मुझसे पहले किसी फीमेल ने ये इसमें अपना हाथ नहीं आजमाया था. That's why I'm known as the first female Ladisha. Whenever I have talked to students, because mostly we have interacted with students during this project, जब भी हमारी students से interaction हुई है after this art form, they have always been very eagerly waiting for my Ladishas, because it like I said, it fascinates you, the deliverance and the way it is being presented, it is being written, and the way issue is being talked in this. So I'll be narrating a Ladisha about education, and after that I'll try to give you a little bit of the central idea about what I was talking in my Ladisha. We are only, what I have tried to talk through this Ladisha was that हम सिर्फ इस पे आज focused हैं कि एक के बाद एक degree certificate has become the importance today. But what you are learning throughout that journey, that is not the concern of neither the child, neither the student, neither the parent, neither the teacher. And then in the later part of the Ladisha, I have tried to request the teachers that it is at the end of the day, teaching is the noble profession, because it's the teacher with whom the student spends most of the time. Now coming to the satire and the humor part, I don't think I'll be able to do justice with that in the translation part, because like I said, Kashmiri language has this quality: when you try to taunt someone, when you try to taunt something, when you try to be satirical about an issue, it automatically sounds humorous. Assalamu alaikum laddi sha'aw, Assalamu alaikum laddi sha'aw, Ostado buziu samyuan kalam, Ostado buziu samyuan kalam, Education aspetchu az saval, Education aspetchu az saval, Dappan haz parun chu marun asan, Dappan haz parun chu marun asan, Kamart kot kunnui karun asan, Kamart kot kunnui karun asan, Number chu poiten maz annain asan, Number chu poiten maz annain asan, Yemisni number su gupun basan, Yemisni number su gupun basan, Degree ak ekis pet khalit asan, Degree ak ekis pet khalit asan, Magar tat vazan ki hin asan, Magar tat vazan ki hin asan, Mual moishti chik pat mithai chakan, Mual moishti chik pat mithai chakan, Tavai chu laddi sha arz karan, Tavai chu laddi sha arz karan, Mya basa parun go pan garun, Mya basa parun go pan garun, Akıl chu suyemis taige hechun, Akıl chu suyemis taige hechun, Number chu number tu beyni kihin, Number chu number tu beyni kihin, Numberau siti hăsilnă Ivan tălim, Numberau siti hăsilnă Ivan tălim, Baceste fikir pat yıtsıy asan, Baceste fikir pat yıtsıy asan, Examas ratan sufan karan, Examas ratan sufan karan, Çukpat tat gotaste pannai tsyanan, Çukpat tat gotaste pannai tsyanan, Ostadau toyçuyi farz asan, Ostadau toyçuyi farz asan, Tu hiçu samajas hech navan, Tu hiçu samajas hech navan, Tuhndui boys bacit mual moști, Tuhndui boys bacit mual moști, Teli în tău am lemaz yim cathz, Teli în tău am lemaz yim cathz, Yutsias cathat laddi shadrau. Thank you once again, and I'm again grateful to you all that you gave me chance to get connected with you, and I'm glad that I could be part of the event, though I'm not physically here, but thank you so much.
Wow, wow. Truly, that was an absolute audio-visual treat, isn't that? Can we hear a huge round of applause for this performance? Because till very recently, to be honest, I did not know what Ladisha was, and when I heard it, I was like, oh, this is very, very interesting. I don't know about you, but I am fairly convinced that if we could harness the power of music, dance, art, and various other art forms, we could probably solve world problems faster than any panel discussions or but don't worry, we'll stick to the agenda today, and we won't have any other delays. But you know what? This is not a part of the plan, but I want to invite Abrar and Fatima for a second here. They represent Alpha International, who did this. Sorry, I did not give you a heads up for this, but I'm very intrigued, and I would want to know personally, when something like this happens and this becomes a medium for you to communicate about school safety, about disaster management, how do students and teachers respond? Because how I'm imagining this is, it's fun and it's entertaining. Do they take it seriously? Do they not? Or does this like enable them to focus more because it's a creative, different way? That's my personal thing that I want to know, and I think everyone would benefit from this as well.
Very good evening, everyone. Certainly, as far as this question is concerned, we were already working with UNICEF on J&K whole school safety, and it used to be very monotonous. Like, you used to go to schools, you used to, have interaction with the children at the schools, and it was very monotonous. It was just a lecture side of a thing, like, if an earthquake hits, you do this, you do that, you don't do this, and you don't do that. But when we got interacted with seeds and the innovation, it made us to stir that innovation thing into us as well. Like how we can take it to different level and how we can engage more students. Prior to this, I believe most of the students, they used to listen to it and then they used to leave. But after this cultural folklore was introduced, we got many calls from different schools, and even the Directorate of School Education applauded these kinds of efforts of Alpha International, and now they are asking us to replicate the similar models across all the 23,000 schools of Jammu and Kashmir. And it is very informative, as well as we could engage more and more students. And we have certain examples now at schools after a period of 1 year, where small students which never heard about Ladisha, because they were very young, and they are now imitating the similar kind of things at their schools. So it's really encouraging and very helpful for disseminating information into an innovative form. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fatima. I wanted to ask you as well, is this the only medium that you use, or are there other things creatively that you use for dissemination of knowledge?
Hello. My name is Fatima. So I would like to say we play Nukkad Natak, street plays. Already there are going in several schools our Nukkad Natak, or what to say? I would like to say that Nukkad Natak जो है उसकी help के through हम जो remote areas हैं, स्पेशली जिन लोगों को हमारी जो मतलब इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज और बाकी लैंग्वेजेस हैं वो वहाँ तक नहीं पहुँच पाती हैं, तो हम नाटक के थ्रू उन तक वो चीज़ पहुँचाते हैं. सो हमारा यही एक मकसद है कि जिस भी तरह से इन टर्म्स ऑफ एनी मीडियम हम उन तक पहुँचें. सो वी रीच देम. थैंक यू.
बहुत बहुत बढ़िया. Thank you so much, both of you. You may please have your seats. Thank you. All right, so it's now time that I would request the panelists to join me here for the panel discussion. And while I do that, I would like to introduce Dr. Manu Gupta, who's the co-founder of Seeds India, to start the panel discussion. And while they're joining in here, I will introduce Dr. Manu is, as I said, the co-founder of Seeds, and he is, Seeds you already know, you would have read up and spoken to a lot of people here, so I don't need to introduce the organization, but Manu is Seeds has been a proud recipient of the United Nations Sasakawa Award in 2022, as well as the prestigious Subhash Chandra Bose Apta Prabandhan Award in 2021 by the Government of India. And over the last 3 decades, Manu has worked extensively on building resilient communities across Asia Pacific. He has been on the forefront of championing and advocating citizen-led initiatives. Given his extensive work internationally and nationally. He's been honored with multiple awards and recognitions, including being selected as the Ashoka Fellow for his tireless efforts. I can go on, but I will pause here and hand it over to Dr. Manu Gupta.
Thank you, Jubin, and good evening once again. It's really a pleasure being with you here this evening. We've had some great interactions so far with all our great innovators from different parts of India and some remarkable work that they have been doing with communities. We have had a very rich tete-a-tete with two of them and some real good insights of how this whole innovation work that we have been doing together has sparked great more values that they would otherwise not have had the opportunity of growing. And just now we've had a very interesting way of communicating to children from our dear partners Alpha. Thank you so much for that great presentation. So with all that great knowledge and great absorption that we've seen in the last half an hour, 45 minutes, it's time to sort of take this conversation further and spend the next half an hour, 45 minutes having this informal conversation. All of you are part of it, all great, curious innovators in this room, in this beautiful setting here in the garden. And on my left, we have some great speakers and panelists. I have the pleasure of moderating this small discussion, exploring few ideas together with them, and perhaps they have some good advice for us to take this whole idea further. So on my immediate left is Aruna. Thank you for joining, Aruna. She is a research consultant with Lighthouse Communities, basically a social researcher and sustainability professional. And of course, she brings with her a great wealth of experience on environmental governance and institutional building. What really sparked my interest, and I would like to speak to you offline later, is about her involvement with the Honeybee Network in IIM Ahmedabad way back when it started. And as we know, the Honeybee Network is one of the pioneering work led by Professor Gupta in IIM Ahmedabad, really promoting local innovation. And I had the opportunity of sharing a jury with him for the CSIR Rural Innovation Awards, and I could see the insight and the wisdom that he brings to the table. So great having you here, Aruna. I'm sure you can add much more to this discussion that has been happening. On the center, great friend, accomplished professional, Kamal Kishore. Many of you know him. He is the member and head of the National Disaster Management Authority, and also he's been the chair of the DRR working group of the G20, which concluded recently, and has been very much engaged in really at the policy level, bringing great shifts in the recent years. He spent his entire life working with the UN at the grassroots, and at several occasions we have worked together, exchanged notes, and co-developed some of those ideas which have taken shape, in various forms now. So great to have you, Kamal, join us today. And on my far left is Takeshi, again, great friend and another accomplished professionals. The first time I met him was in Afghanistan, and I was wondering, what is this Japanese young chap doing in Afghanistan in a remote area? And there he was. He started his career on the borders of Pakistan and Afghanistan, working with the displaced population from Afghanistan. And he's a thorough field person, but now he has many leadership hats. He's the vice chair of the Asian Disaster Reduction and Response Network, which is an alliance of 55 plus local organizations from across Asia and Pacific. And also he's been the head of the Tokyo Innovation Lab, which has been one of the partners for this work that has been happening for the last 3 years, even in India. So great to have you here. And we'll keep this very conversational, and so please feel free to interject any time, to stop me and to give your ideas. But I do have some set of questions that I'll run through with you, if you don't mind. So this is to all three of you. You know, we've gone through a certain journey in the last couple of years on this innovation track. And I remember, Kamal, you had once convened a workshop in NDMA talking about innovation. And innovation then was spoken in terms of looking for solutions for some of the knotty problems that continue to plague us in our country. And that was one of the first such workshops that I came across, and it was a very engaging experience. Ever since then, we've been trying to work on those ideas, and thanks to the partnership with HIF and ELRA, we have been able to look at certain themes here at Seeds, and we've also partnered with organizations who are here with us here today in this garden, who have worked on extreme heat or extreme cold, who have worked on urban flooding, who have worked on livelihoods and other such issues. And some great ideas have got incubated, and because of our engagement with ELRA and HIF and many of them, they have kind of flowered into much bigger ideas which have the potential for scale. Now that's where I would like to come to my question, is that while we know there is such great diversity and such great differences in the various cultures and the context of climate change and the nature of disasters across the country, and for that matter Asia Pacific, how do we scale these great ideas? What could be those elements that we can take up that can get replicated, multiplied at societal level? Because if they've solved the problem, I'm sure there are so many communities in other geographies that may be looking for nuggets from here. So maybe some direction to us on these lines. I would like to start with you, Aruna.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. Seeds has been, an organization that one has been interacting with off and on, and I'm always amazed by the work that you keep doing. Regarding the question on scale, I think that has been a question that has plagued most of us for the past 2 decades almost now, if not more. And one of the differences that one would like to make in understanding the conundrum between scale and localization is that communities over a period of time have discovered that there is a difference between scaling up and scaling out. And the traditional understanding of how we reach out to masses, to numbers, on the basis of economies of scale, might not always be true when we are talking in terms of innovations, transformation, and especially social change. And in this context, I feel, what one has learned from communities and the projects that one has seen across the world when it comes to climate or sustainability is identifying certain core principles that remain at the heart of it. Just to elaborate a little on that, if we are talking about looking at innovations, one has to, I loved what WRI said when they were doing the project, and they mentioned that we gave the camera over, right? And I think it's all about recognizing that it's about allowing people to nurture their agency to innovate. And once we create that space, we as humans have a tendency to innovate to meet unmet needs. The challenge is that are we trained enough to have the human eye to notice them? And once we start noticing, then there is a pattern that emerges. So have nurturing that space for agency is at the heart of it, rather than only being a provider. And secondly, recognizing that resilience, after all, is ultimately our ability to get back up. And if that has to be nurtured, then just access is not enough. What we probably need is something that we all look for everywhere and all around us, which is assurance. Right? Assurance to be included, assurance to be heard, assurance that I have enough opportunities to listen and act, assurance that institutions are there to support the process rather than lead the process. So I think those would be some of the key principles that have been at the heart of the work that one has seen in various examples, and I'm sure my colleagues will definitely add more to that.
Yeah, great. Kamal?
So I think I'll build on your point on allowing the agency of people to flourish. I think one key aspect of allowing the agency of people at the local level particularly to flourish is trust that, if you allow that, it will flourish. Most of our financial management frameworks are devoid of trust. And I would reckon that if we look at the investment made in innovation in hi-fi labs and innovation done at the local level, and if you look at cost of it or rate of return, I think local innovation will far outshine what the big labs do. So we should be willing to trust. We should be willing to risk that sometimes things will not work. Sometimes things will be a very, very big flop, but sometimes when they work, nothing like that. And a corollary of that is that while, of course, especially in this country, we have to worry about scale, but sometimes I think we shouldn't worry about scale, because if something has value, not in a capitalist sense, but in a certain sense, the market will take care of it, and it will flourish on its own. And sometimes you need a million different kinds of solutions. Some solutions do not need to be scaled. Just now, I returned from Sikkim. There are places which are cut off where pedestrian bridges are no longer there. The best way to reconstruct them or restore functionality quickly is to work with communities. They will innovate. They will use local material. But do I want those solutions to be scaled up? No, I don't want that. But it is solving a local problem with local resources, with local initiative, with local imagination to address specific needs there. So yes, we should worry about scale, but not too much. If an innovation hasn't scaled, that doesn't mean that it hasn't succeeded. It has solved a problem. So I think these are the three mantras I would leave us with. One is that trust. Two, worry about scale, but not too much. And trust that if there is something that needs to be scaled, it will take care of itself.
Yeah, no, thank you. Those are great words. Recognizing those principles from, the assurance and those patterns that you mentioned to trust, which is again a very important building block, and recognizing that some things work only at that level, and you don't necessarily need to replicate because another community somewhere else is also innovating, and maybe we just recognize that as that unique characteristic of innovation. Takeshi.
Yes. Hi, everyone. When we started this innovation initiative and our colleagues at ERA, they asked the question, so this innovation venture, how do you measure success? And what I told them was, as soon as innovation is embedded in C's strategy, it's success. In a way, because if you look at all the innovation ideas in the stand on the back, it's more than just the activity. It's more than just a project, right? It's your way of living. And I think once it becomes people's way of living, then that will naturally scale. And that's why I think it's really important to have an ecosystem-based approach. So we don't only focus on one product or one idea, but this network of people who work together, who synergize with each other and create a movement. Because I think this is a movement. This is not just one project, but this is a movement. So creating that movement, supporting those who are really creating that movement, I think is really a pathway to scale. Something network like ADRN should think about. Because I think if we just do the status quo of being the traditional NGO network, we will not be relevant in this changing world. But if we can really stimulate these movements to happen with our colleagues, then I think there will be a value in us. And maybe that way, we contribute to this scaling agenda.
Yeah, just stay there on that point, Takeshi. I mean, this gathering here today is comprising mostly organizations who have, who want to join that movement, and I'm sure there would be certain the same kind of organizations in other parts of Asia where you've been working extensively. How do you see that role emerging? How do you encourage, keeping in mind what Kamal said and Aruna said, that sometimes you don't need scale, but you need to recognize the work that they are doing and somehow tie that together. What is your message to local organizations who can develop these ideas, and what could be those principles?
In order to scale, I mean, to contribute?
Well, building on that, yeah. I mean,
I think one important thing is whether you do it by yourself or with the support of others, evidence is critical. Evidence. So all the ideas that are showcased here and all the innovation programs that you work with, there's a science to why it works, why problem exists. There's also a science to how this problem can be solved. That science, I think, needs to be unpacked. Once that science is unpacked, then it could be translated as know-how to people. Sometimes we just take one package. We think we understand everything. We don't. So I think that digging process of what's the science behind this solution maybe can get people together and stimulate that networking.
No, great. I think this is what makes a lot of sense. Let me just take a pause and I'm looking at all my friends here. Anybody has a question on this role that potentially you can play to recognize and replicate some of these unique ideas? Anyone wants to? No one? Okay, maybe later. So moving on this, now we've kind of looked at flipping the notion. We've looked at communities innovating, how necessity is driving innovation, and that's good. How do you now kind of start looking at enabling frameworks? And one such big enabling framework is policy. How does policy support such kind of initiatives? So any insights on that, Kamal? Anything you would like to say?
So I would say the first thing is that this may sound a little bit like a counterpoint to the notion of localization, but it's an important one. One key thing is that in the current context, everybody is living downstream from something else that is happening elsewhere. So I have just come back from Sikkim, so my perception is colored by that immediate exposure to what happened there. So if you wanted to deal with flash floods in a certain part of Sikkim, you can't do it unless there is an enabling system which communicates the risk that they are exposed to, people are exposed to. Because it's, you know, I mean, if you were there and if you were faced by that flash flood, you haven't seen it, your forefathers haven't seen it. Because the way risks are configuring, they are emanating from somewhere else, impacting somewhere else. You know, in fact, the worst effects are, some of the worst effects are not even in Sikkim, they are in West Bengal and down even to Bangladesh. So I think that's really important, that an enabling environment which communicates risk. It sounds a bit cliche to say risk communication, communicate risk, but let's call it, you know, a discussion on risk. And we should get out of our cultural comfort zone on not talking about बुरी चीजों के बारे में बात नहीं करनी, to, you know, look at what is really unfolding in front of us. Unless that kind of awareness of the kinds of threats, surprises and uncertainties we face, there will be always limits to what local level innovation can do. So that's one point I want to say. The second point I want to say is that a lot of the times when we talk about localization and local innovation, we sort of equate it with low tech. I think that's completely wrong. People appropriate technology much better than we can actually anticipate. So I think my firm belief is that no technology is too humble or too advanced to be made available, made accessible at the local level to the largest extent possible. And my third enabling environment goes back to what I was, an enabling factor goes back to my earlier remarks, is about trust. I wish we could have even government funded small grants programs which were more trusting, which had very low administrative burden, and let's be willing to lose 50% of that money. Nothing came out of it. But the 50% that would work, it would really work like magic. So I think once you say that, you know, this is, you know, I mean, it's not exactly innovation, but let's take the example of what is happening in Odisha in the context of cyclones. Our cyclone preparedness program works because we trust communities to manage resources and manage their multi-purpose shelters. Those may have been built by the government, but those are owned and run by the communities themselves with resources in their hands. So I think when we talk about localization, coming back to your point, the agency has to be at the local level, and which means that our systems of financing or supporting that should also be more trusting, less risk averse, and you know, I mean, if you did that, even with all those risks, rate of return at that level is much higher than hi-fi labs. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think these 3 points that you made about enabling environment, make some resources available at the disposal of communities and trust them, they will come out with something very valuable out of it. And I completely agree. We've seen that happen ever so often. Communicating risk, again, something that our friends from WRI spoke about just half an hour ago, about storytelling, various ways which our colleague from Alpha also mentioned. How do you communicate risk in creative ways so that it stays with people? Aruna, how do you bring this into a, if I may provoke you on this, how do you bring an institutional shape to this? Is there a structure emerging that you see?
So, you know, I love the analogies from Star Wars, going into uncharted territories where no one has gone before. And that's what we keep ending up doing every time, isn't it? With this, I feel that in the social space, we are constantly battling that. And as entrepreneurs, as innovators, we all know that we should definitely maximize our capacity to be informed, to listen what's happening, and build all kinds of institutional mechanisms to allow us to listen. And data is definitely one of that. Technology is a definite enabler when it comes to that. I also feel that, there is an element of gut. There is an element of knowing that we all nurture over a period of time. And leaders, when it comes to difficult circumstances, often end up acting from that space of gut, isn't it? I feel innovating is almost tapping into that energy each and every time when you're faced with a difficult circumstance. The question is that, do we have that capacity to deep dive into our gut and come up with an institutional configuration that allows us to work with the current form of uncertainties? And I feel that in the social sector, with increasing amount of networks coming up, with increasing amount of coalitions coming up, that has actually happened over a period of time. To quote an example, what if, and this has actually happened, so the what if has been answered, but let's begin with the what if scenario. What if adolescent girls who are being educated because they have been left out of the education system, right? So they are being educated through an education program, are nurtured enough to develop their own agencies, because agency is something that you can't hand over to somebody. It has to be nurtured over a period of time, which means that it has an incubation period in communities. And so what if those girls who have been trained in education have also been allowed the space to nurture their agency, to respond to a COVID-like situation, where they are able to put together infrastructure by locally available talent, locally available infrastructure, the government, the information which has been given by the government, by the resources that have been mobilized by organizations, to take care of immediate care in their respective villages. And so by doing so, what one is saying is, can our institutional fabric work in a manner that we foresee the vision of agency, wherein each and every program of whatever we are doing as organizations allows our participants to mobilize that kind of strength, that kind of coalition, be it reaching out to government, be it reaching out to the industry, be it reaching out to the NGO world, be it reaching out to the community members themselves and their respective trades and capacities and skills. To be able to be that clued in means that there has been expansive amount of embeddedness that has been enabled by somebody, And that doesn't come from, a skill building program which focuses only on getting jobs. It actually comes from a program that nurtures agency along with understanding what kind of employment is going to be resilient over a period of time. Or say, for example, it comes from a program that says that a person who is a local resident of a village in Bihar can come up with a model of a floating cycle that can be taken up by disaster management authorities across the world, right? As one of the vehicles for offering support in disaster situations. That can happen if an innovation, which is actually a groundnut digger in a farm, can be used for cleaning beaches in Brazil, and just because the technology makes sense when adapted, right? Now, in all these cases, it's people and their ingenuity which has been nurtured. And, my colleagues have been spot on in saying that that needs to be nurtured and localized, right? And in today's day and time, we have the state level plans in India, for example, that allows us to build that resilience, that allows for Samaj Sarkar and Bazaar collaboration, that allows for 150, 200 organizations to come together in a coalition, right? And these are existing networks that I'm talking about. So I feel that we've actually reached that space where we are already building blueprints of organizations that are no longer limited by their organizational boundaries, right? And so once we recognize this power of being able to collaborate together, innovate together, have multiple shared visions rather than just a single one, you know, is the need of the hour. Recognizing them is the need of the hour, more than co-creating more and more.
Great. No, I think this absolutely spot on the, and thank you for underscoring the point around agency and how do you restore agency of people in this entire innovation process and the journey that we are taking in, you know, building the enabling environment around it. I will pick up on that Samaj Sarkar Bazaar trinity. We have spoken about this a lot in our social circles and lately looking at partnerships. Incidentally, this was coined earlier by Premji, who was also part of our innovation cohort. Unfortunately, we lost him during the COVID. On this part, and I'm sure this would be of interest to many people sitting here who have been part of this whole innovation journey, as to where do you start? You know, how do you build these partnerships? Sometimes it's easier said than done. Given that, yes, the agency of people is most important, given that we are having those enabling environments that Kamal spoke about, and you, Aruna, how do you kind of forge partnerships between seemingly very, very different animals? You know, the civil society, the private sector, all of them have their own kind of, you know, for want of a better word, a business plan. How do you forge partnerships? And I'm sure all of them would really gain from any insights that all three of you have. So in any order, you want to pick up your mic and speak.
I think empathy leads to shared vision. In order to have an empathy, if I go up to you and say, hey, can you help me? That doesn't create empathy. But if I go up to you and say, hey, can we help them? Then that may create empathy. I think the starting point is not always yourself at the center. I think starting point is always someone else at the center. And that attitude of putting someone else at the center of your whole thinking, I think is the prerequisite for any partnership, because then people will see you as really genuine and people might want to go through this journey together with you. So partnership is not only about you giving me something, but it's about going through the journey together. I think that's a true partnership, because innovation is essentially trying to solve the unsolved. There are good days and bad days for sure. Innovation process always goes up and down, up and down. And in a downtime, it's always easy to say, look, we've had enough, too much trouble, let's quit. But it's those moments that if you work with really like-minded, shared vision colleagues, then you'll be able to think, you can believe in the future, saying, maybe we can really pull this off. It's difficult, but we can pull this off. So I think forging that kind of relationship is important. One more thing, if I'm allowed to add, is sometimes we're too much in our comfort zone. I think we need to get out from our comfort zone. If we want to reach out to people who can bring different value, to the problem solving, then we need to go to them instead of waiting for them to come to you. And so I think that requires courage also, because in this field, you may introduce me as a expert on this or you know, professional in this, but if I go to that field, I'm an amateur. You know, there's no one who will look up to me and say, oh, you're this, you're that. But I need to go to this area and say, can I learn from you? Can we speak about this? I think that also takes courage. I think that is something important for us to have in this era.
Great. And stepping out of our comfort zones, absolutely. Kamal, anything?
So I don't know, but I can, in the Samaj Sarkar Bazaar partnership or continuum, let me focus on Sarkar bit for a moment and just share some reflections. These are not answers. I often think about heat wave and how it is making many parts of the country, our built environment, unlivable. And the only way we can address this is if we transform the built environment in a radical way and very, very quickly. And how will that happen? You know, how would you achieve that transformation on that scale? When I think about it, the only thing that I see where this kind of transformation, although that's very focused, that has happened is these lights. 20 years ago, if we were sitting here, we would be all tungsten light, you know, energy guzzlers. And within a matter of just 5-10 years, the whole thing changed. Suddenly, we now have LEDs. You know, if you want a tungsten bulb, you have to go to a special shop to find it. And there's a role that the Sarkar played in it by making some commitments that if this is produced, we will buy up so much. So can we have something like this, that, you know, if we have a viable cool roof technology, we'll subsidize, you know, 1 million square meters of roofing. If, you know, so there is market guaranteed for that innovation if it works. So I don't know, but I'm just thinking that maybe even I was talking about taking risks at the small scale, but maybe we should think about taking risks on the big scale as well, because big transformation also requires, you know, big thinking, big risk taking as well. But it's not an answer, just a reflection.
No, great. And I think the point you made is about building that co-ownership in some way, you know, and taking that risk irrespective of the scale. Anything you would like to add to this?
So I just wanted to share one brief bit, which was I wanted to focus on the part where you said that with differing interests, right, and different agendas, how do we bring these three very different animals together? And I feel that, you know, in the history of the social sector, with the dichotomies that we have focused on, we have for very, very long been state and society, right? Market and society. And not recognizing that we are actually part of all these three animals as individuals, right? With many more overlaps. And so the question that we should be asking is, what are the points at which we get united, where we can come together? And there are many vehicles right now that, say, for example, we have the most obvious one is the Sustainable Development Goals, right? And through that, actually, there are opportunities for us to come together at various instances where we can have the courage to design certain very unheard of vehicles, both at the small and the large scale, when it comes to either funding, the nature of funding, as well as appreciating the kind of policy work that needs to be done. The challenge, however, is that you know, our inherent nature is to be risk averse. To quote a recent funding report by CSIP, Center for Social Impact and Philanthropy, Actually, more than 90% of the funding that flows into it, into the sector, tends to be risk averse, which means that we are avoiding things that can ruffle feathers, which is something that we need to move beyond. And I feel that the sector has now seen moving in of a lot of such institutions who are questioning their own practices, who are inquiring into their own biases and understanding of what we think is right. So I feel this understanding of being the experts and knowing what to do, that whole thing has to be shed away for a moment, put on the side, to be able to come into a room and then say what is it that we can be together. And there are no equalizers or there are no connectors like empathy, equity, love for that matter, right? In fact, there is a survey that was done where 99% people feel in companies, and this is across 450 companies, right? 99% of the people feel that it's important to talk about love at workplace. But less than 5% feel that we talk about it. Right? So there are certain underlying pieces that actually unite us. And vehicles where we have been able to bring the state, society, and the market nexus together has been in times of urgency where we have shed away those protocols, have had the courage to move beyond what scaffolds us or regulates us, right? And experiment with what has not been done before. Nothing can be as far emphasized what Takeshi shared in terms of having the courage to do that. I think that's at the heart of it.
No, absolutely. Courage and empathy to shed our inhibitions, or for that matter, also, keep aside our conventional thinking about the other side. We look at private sector only for resources, but as you said, I think there are these common principles, and I can vouch for that because we've had some great partnerships, and some of them are here today with us, which have gone beyond just resources and donations and stuff like that, where they've come together, we've sat around a table in a place like Nepal, where we had to reach out to very far remote areas. It was this noodle making company who provided their entire supply chain and said, use our supply chain to reach out to people with the necessary housing and the relief that they needed after the earthquake. So, it requires that kind of courage. It requires us to also break down our mindsets. And I'm sure you are taking down these notes, all of you who have to jostle with this kind of a challenge every now and then. And perhaps this becomes like a blocker for you to be able to really move things to scale, to be able to do more of what you are doing already. So if there's anything you want to ask at this stage, I'm looking at all of you, anything that really sort of comes to your mind about what can I do more, or what is it that I need to be able to enable me to do more? Anything, any observation or any good experience you have had so far? I see a hand there. Can we have a microphone? Oh, okay, maybe you and then we can go there.
Okay, sorry. I think being a part of this whole journey, the rightly said you, I would like to just add something, or like to find your views on that. To be an innovator, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be exposed. You have to be open up, and that really, while working with the stakeholders, the communities, the group of people where you work, you struggle, and sometimes you fall. Sometimes they take it as a good thing. So what I feel that what I found that denying something is of great difficulties. While coming up with new ideas, maybe they experiment for that. But the practices that they are doing, and you say that don't do this, or we will come up with this idea, then let us not do it. So that is a real difficult task for being an innovator. And I need your reflections also. Like for example, don't do big dams, accepted. Go for small dams. Don't do don't do big cyclone shelters. Still a question back. Should we go for cyclone shelters, big or small? That is, I'm from Odisha, so I have been working with the communities who are really depending on the cyclone shelters for their survivals. Now we are also coming up these ideas that instead of making one big cyclone shelter in for 2 panchayats, let us make 3-4 cyclone shelters. So these are some of the things. I don't know. I'm not capable of doing these kind of experiments. But whether these are relevant or should we think, in that way? Thank you. Kamal sir, I think I would like to get your reflections on this.
So we will take one more question and then maybe we can.
Hello. Yeah.
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 Bhavya.
Yeah. So I was just interested in understanding the importance of technology. So the multidisciplinary collaboration, because I think disaster is a multidisciplinary subject, and how important the technology collaboration with disaster in centrally and locally. So your perspective.
Okay, sure. That's a good one. We'll take this one more and then we can turn to the panelists.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hi. I've been working in Rajasthan and with pastoral communities, and we have evolved a model of partnership between community, not-for-profit institution, and another institution, Desert Resource Center, which works on policy, and also promoted for-profit social enterprises which could enable market access. Now, every institution has its own role to play, has its own set of individuals to represent in that entire value chain. But when we go to raise funds, for example, it becomes a challenge because you are accessing that funding from a certain context, from one singular point. And so that's where the point that Mr. Kamal made about the market or the larger system also needs to have a trust on this innovation, this innovative partnership. So when we go and talk to a funder for this for-profit entity, very good, very nice effort, oh, we believe in this, all of that, but we would prefer not to have a community member on the board. Or we would prefer not to have certain XYZ because the market does not allow us to do that. Or the government policy does not allow us to do that. And so these are the kind of problems which then reflect on that partnership. And so then how do you tackle that? Because you have to make friends with the devil. It comes to that kind of a situation. And how do you ensure that the partnership exists and flourishes? So that becomes a real challenge. So I would like to know any of your thoughts on that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for raising that questions. And real challenges around partnerships when these conditions come in and they kind of inhibit any further kind of deepening of these partnerships. So turning to you, our fellow panelists here, questions around any reference mark or any process of validation about what is right, whether I'm going, is this a great idea to develop, the point around technology, and then about partnerships. So anybody would like to reflect? Aruna, maybe? Oh, okay, come on.
I mean, I can take the question on Odisha, whether one big cyclone shelter or several small cyclone shelters. So, but before I answer the question, I have to say that to a large extent, we have to go with the aspirations of the people. And I am not, I can't make a case that we should be making cyclone shelters for decades to come. I want to be in a situation where you're talking about a few small cyclone shelters. I will go even local. And I will say each house that we build should be a cyclone shelter. Unless, unless it is just impossible because of issues related to location and not finding alternate land, etc. So I think that has to be the movement, that has to be the next generation of cyclone resilience work in the country. And that again requires innovation on scale. How do we make cost-effective, cyclone-resistant housing available to millions of people? How do they feel comfortable about it? How are they going to take care of their small businesses, livestock, and so on? So I think that's the next generation. I can certainly say that we cannot be satisfied with whatever we've achieved in the cyclone preparedness in the country. We can take satisfaction from it, but we cannot say that this is enough. We have to go a long way in making every family, every cyclone, every house a cyclone shelter in itself. Thank you.
Great. Takeshi, Aruna, maybe Aruna first and then.
Okay, so quick comments from my side. I really agree with you when you said when you try to do innovation, you have to be vulnerable. As you said, this sector is so risk averse. Then I remind myself of like a baseball theory. If you're a baseball batter, I don't know if it's something similar in cricket, but if you hit 3 out of 10, you're a great player, aren't you? Right? And it's okay to fail. So failure is when you stop, then you might be labeled as this thing failed. But then, as I said, there are ups and downs in innovation. And so, so keeping in mind that it's okay to have these downtime and uptime and sort of encouraging yourself, I think, is also important. On the technology and disaster, from my perspective, because of the technological advancement, we're now able to analyze why a specific hazard has become a disaster in this area. So that interlinkage and analysis capacity that we have on that is uncomparable in the past. And that tells us something, because then we could think about how to keep ourselves safer and reduce the impact as much as possible. And we can even take these analysis to a forecasting. Then in anticipatory action, for example, people are talking about it. So all that, I think we can become a bit more smarter how to coexist on this planet, rather than thinking that we're at the center of this planet. And lastly, on the partnership, I'm going to Rajasthan tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your program. I'm already a fan of your program before going there, but I think I will be a big fan, after this trip. And seeing these things, as you were saying, you just came back from your trip, seeing these things with your own eyes really make a difference. So what I would suggest is, if you find someone as a potential people who you want to partner with, bring them to your field. Do this assessment, joint assessment together, because then that will create something common between you and that person, and maybe that that becomes a colleague that you're able to go through the journey together. Whenever I find these people, I always think whether there's a possibility I can ask him or her to accompany, on these trips and see the same thing together, because then it's easier to create that empathy. Yeah.
Wow.
So just two things to add to the discussion. I think for the first and the third question, second question, I feel that when we are talking about innovations, there is a need now for all of us to have access to certain benchmarking of innovations, be it coming from the grassroots communities, be it coming from the labs, and certain important principles around which they need to be benchmarked, given what we are trying to do, including equity and inclusion, right? So not just cost-benefit analysis, but also equity and inclusion of nature, sustainability, humans, all the costs that we have been talking about lately. And interestingly, that movement for creating such benchmarking, right, was started long back in the late 90s, but slowly it's gaining some momentum. So say, for example, today, if we want to understand what would a sustainable transportation system look like, a resilient transportation system, which is regenerative in nature, which means that it is adding value to the environment and ecology while enabling us to access technology for a long period of time for us to sustain. MacArthur Foundation has come up with brilliant data-driven projects around it to understand 3 sectors: energy, transportation, and construction. Similarly, there has been multiple reports now that tell us that how smaller structures for conserving water and generating hydroelectric power is actually less disastrous and can generate overall, in terms of longer value addition to the environment, to the society, to our grids, and also usage. Even in solar power, for example, the countries right now, our policymakers and government is talking about how can we look at integrated and decentralized way of looking at solar power and grids, right? What is more equitable? What will get us more social returns along with the technology returns that we are talking about? And so a lot of these decisions today are very data informed. And in certain cases, it makes sense for us to go the decentralized mode, to go the modular mode that we are talking about, and in certain cases, actually centralizing help, right? And those decisions have to be very informed decisions rather than us being romantic about it. And so for that, I feel new ways of measuring that include social indicators, equity indicators, have to be included in our cost-benefit analysis when we look at technologies. And that's where multidisciplinarism comes in, especially in case of disasters, because we've known to be ready to respond for immediate relief. But building back societies, building back communities and institutions for long are places where we are still innovating and figuring out what would the emerging nature of society look like once they have recovered from a certain situation. How do we build long-term resilience, right? And that really needs a coming together of people from different disciplines, from the social space, from the cultural space, from natural sciences, to be able to figure out those models. On the aspect of funding and relationships, I feel that at this juncture, whenever we talk about innovations, and this is something that came to me long back when I had started working in the sector and with Honeybee Network. My first job and my first assignment was to interview innovators and understand what drives them. And I was interviewing somebody, who had, he was called Mr. Sharma actually, he's no more. And he had actually developed a toothpaste, a toothbrush that had an automated mechanism of having toothpaste being deposited on the toothbrush, right? So it was a small contraption, interesting one, and he was very excited about it. And he had about 99 such small innovations, where he would tinker here and there and create something new. So as a student, it was exciting for me. And in that interview, when I asked him, what motivates you to do this? And he said that you may call me an innovator, but at the end of the day, I create happiness. I create happiness for myself and for those around me. And that's what drives me, right? And so that day, the person actually redefined the relationship for me that an innovator has with innovation. It's not a technology, right? For them, it's not just a piece of technology. And so for us also, when we are interacting with our work, we are constantly redefining our relationships, isn't it? For Urmul, and when you work in the field, it's not just work for you. It's a relationship that you have built and nurtured over a period of time with communities, with the organizations and institutions that you talked about, right? And there is a relationship that you are now trying to build with the funder who will support it. And these relationships have to be redefined and nurtured. And only when we redefine them, only when we nurture them in a certain way, that you will see new innovations coming from your partners as well. Right? So, I'll go back to courage and inspiring others. Right? And definitely taking them to the field is one of the biggest strategy to inspiring them to understand the value that you have created, the relationship that you have built. That is what would inspire them to figure out, oh, what's the loophole in my regulations to be able to give funding to this organization. Because I relate to the work that they do, right? So I think at the end of the day, collaboration and partnership is about redefining relationships with ourselves, with our work, and with others. The moment we do that, we will start seeing it coming to fruition.
These are great words of encouragement, I must say, Aruna. I was feeling very charged up listening to you. Unless there are more questions anywhere,
I think half of them will probably be thinking about this question, so I will ask on your behalf. Where can we buy that toothbrush?
Yeah. Yeah, early mornings. So, no, thank you. So maybe I can just quickly, I've made some points here as messages that all of you have so generously shared with our innovators here. And considering that you will be going back to your realities, challenges, and all those other, real world issues that you will be facing, here are some very, very nice nuggets that I picked up today, which I think you should keep in mind while you're doing your great work. One is, of course, going backwards, it's okay to fail, okay? And don't worry and fret too much about it. I think this is a very clear message from my friends here. We are all with you, and in this kind of work that we do, failure is very much a very inherent part of the journey. Believe in coalitions, and coalitions will not only sustain, but also will give you the confidence that you need to be able to take things to scale or to even sustain the work that you are doing with your communities. On partnerships, I think this was a very important insight that we heard about looking at, breaking down those barriers through empathy, through finding those commonalities, why they are there in that partnership in the first place, irrespective of whatever may be their institutional affiliation. They are there for a cause and build around that cause, and that's how partnerships get nurtured. The importance of communication, storytelling about what are the risks, what are the potential risks. And I think one of the most central points was around the agency of people and how do you restore that. I think that's the fulcrum on which we can not only scale but also sustain the work around innovation that we are taking up. All I can say is, in the last few weeks, we have seen how we've gone through the hottest September, and some studies already saying 1.4 degrees. and all of that. So the future is not very bright as far as the phenomena is concerned. But I think we have a very, very important role, and it's very important for us to continue working the way we are and grow this coalition. I think that's the key message that is coming out of it. So let's stay together and let's enjoy our evening. I would really like to thank Takeshi, Kamal, Aruna. I really enjoyed listening to you. I hope this was an engaging session for you as well. And thank you as always for joining and supporting the work we are doing. Thank you, and join us for the next session, please. Jubin, over to you.
Thank you so much to Dr. Aruna, Takeshi, Dr. Kamal Kishore, and Dr. Manu Gupta. Thank you. So, with that, we come to the end of this remarkable event, and we want to extend a heartfelt gratitude and thank you to all the innovators, the panelists, the guests, and our participants here. And I want to also take a moment to recognize all the hard work that's gone behind it, from the tech team to the media team, the sound team, the ones who have done up the art installation there that you see behind. And I think Shraddha will come here and share a note with. Sweet. So I think now is the time that we're going to give a little token of appreciation to all the panelists, and I can invite Anant and Shraddha to do that. Manu, can I invite you here to help with... Dr. Aruna and Takeshi, may I invite you up here? Takeshi first. Maybe in the light in the middle here. Can we have a round of applause? Thank you so much, Takeshi. Dr. Aruna, can we have you up here? Thank you. Thank you so much. Kamal has stepped out for an urgent call, so... Oh, he's here? Can we have a round of applause for Kamal Kishore? Thank you. Thank you once again. Your presence here today has made this gathering truly special. And I really hope that today, through all the insightful event-related information that you've gotten, we managed to flip the notion. Did we? Can I hear a yes or no or maybe? Yeah. Because the whole objective was that we are able to then place localization at the core of all our discussions going forward, right? So I hope that message, that news, we managed to convey that, and we managed to flip the notion. As we close, Abraham Lincoln and countless others have shared a quote which I would like to recite, which is, "The best way to predict your future is to create it." And this event here today is a part of that larger humanitarian endeavor that we wanted to create. On this note, I would like to also, like I was thanking a few of us here who have put the effort to set up the panels at the back, and I really would appreciate, if you haven't already, to take a nice walk and meet the innovators, see their work, and see how you can best collaborate with them. So thank you to everyone who has made this event possible. Can we have a round of applause? You know who you are, and we are really, really grateful and indebted to you for that. From this, let's continue to flip the notion through all our incredible work around climate resilience, through local innovation. Once again, thank you so much, and hope to see you all very, very soon. Please do not leave. There is some snack here for you, so we would love for you to be here, and then we meet and greet and leave. Thank you. Good night.
Hello. Yeah. No, just want to thank the Seeds team here. Thank you all for working very hard behind the scenes. All of you are here. Really great effort. Thank you, Jubin. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, I was corrected. There is dinner. Yes, not snack. So please, please, please stay back, have dinner. Let's have a good conversation, and then head home with our stomachs full. Sorry, thank you.